Children's rights are being honored across the globe today after the Nobel Committee awarded the Peace Prize to a Pakistani teenager who was nearly killed by the Taliban for her activism, as well as an Indian activist. ABC's Susan Salney reports.
This is not the end of this campaign which I have started. I think this is really the beginning.
Malala Yousafzai, the 17-year-old Pakistani child education activist, is in the international spotlight again this morning, becoming the youngest person ever to win the Nobel Peace Prize, sharing the honor with Kailash Satyarthi of India, also awarded for his work on children's rights.
The committee regards it as an important point for a Hindu and a Muslim, an Indian and a Pakistani, to join in a common struggle for education and against extremism.
It was only 2 years ago that a Taliban gunman shot Malala in the head for trying to get an education and for being outspoken about girls having a right to go to school. Since then, she has turned her personal tragedy into a campaign for schoolgirls whose educations and lives are threatened around the world.
I truly believe the only way we can create global peace and to our peace and prosperity is only reading, knowledge, and education.
She's remained humble, even in the face of extraordinary accomplishment.
This award is not just a piece of metal or a medal that you would wear or an award that you would keep in your room, but this is really an encouragement for me to go forward.
Malala has said that going to school is like walking through a magic door to your dreams, and today, sure enough, she was in class when her good news was announced. Susan Salney, ABC News, Washington.
All right, so congratulations to the two winners, and certainly everybody takes protection of children seriously. But guys, I couldn't help but think as I was watching all of this today, as a nation, we don't really care that much. I mean, we do as individuals, we care about protecting children or we care about women's rights, but let's be honest, we don't orient our foreign policy. We do so much business with Pakistan and India, and nobody's putting any provisos on the billions of dollars that we send there every year saying you have to improve the rights and lives of children or you have to improve the rights and lives of women. Look at Saudi Arabia, for example. Women and children have miserable lives and are restricted from their rights all the time in those countries. But the oil, we don't want to stop the business. Or in the Middle East, we don't want to stop the protection. Should we be using our foreign policy to follow some of our human rights principles?
Yeah, I think that's a really difficult question. I agree that we don't care that much.
We don't.
I mean, ultimately, it's always an add-on, and when you get, this woman is just amazing, and I hope my 3 daughters emulate her. I mean, she's so strong. At age 11, she did that. Her speech today was just fantastic. But at the end of the day, it's kind of an add-on argument that, oh, and by the way, while we're in Afghanistan, the girls are going back to school. It's not something that we think about all the time. At the other end of the day, I mean, how much can the U.S. from thousands of miles away change cultures that are thousands of years old? It's a difficult thing to do. I mean, it's
a practical impossibility.
And whether we should,
if we went for every human rights violation, first of all, we'd have to investigate ourselves on some things that we do as a society, but we'd be at war with every country in the world. But should we be doing more, Dominic? Because it's Malala, and we applaud her, and everybody agrees with her efforts, but we're not doing anything to help her.
But Andrew, polling has consistently showed that America does not have the resources to police the entire world.
Of course.
And so, I mean, I know this sounds horrible, but you can't focus on everything. I mean, and to say that we don't care about children, I mean, we care about children here in this country. And I think that there's an effort to care about children around the world. And I really believe leaders do. Maybe they could do a little more tying business to it, but I mean, it's a tough one.
What do you think, TJ?
I think Bill hit it right on the head when you talk about just, we're not going to be able to change ancient cultures. I mean, these are, I mean, and I'll say it, these are some backwards places. These are some medieval,
But you know what? We had a culture in this country that allowed people to own other human beings.
Yeah. Right.
We changed that culture.
Right.
We had a culture that didn't let women vote, and we changed that culture.
That may have something to do with the, here comes, remember that thing I was about to sketch? This may have something to do with the Judeo-Christian culture here, that, there is a bit of a progressive thing happening here, whereas some of these Sharia-based, I don't know.
No, I think we do it through America's media strength. You know, people see American television around the world. They see films around the world. They listen to our music. They see America's values over the internet. I mean, that has an intrinsic effect into the in the minds of billions of people around the world, and young girls coming up in Saudi Arabia or wherever.
Give everybody
Bahrain.
cable and the world's a better place.
Yeah, I mean, they see this happening across the world, and not just in the U.S., in Europe and other places, and maybe that's the most we can do. We're not going to invade Saudi Arabia and demand that every woman goes to school and
again, at the same time, some of this culture that's getting broadcast around the world doesn't. I wouldn't exactly put all of our culture in terms of. I mean, there's a lot of degradation of women at the hands of men in popular culture.
Some of your videos I wouldn't put out.
Some of my videos I would. Well,
fair point, but you said we shouldn't invade Saudi Arabia. And nobody's arguing. Nobody's arguing they should. But we sell them billions of dollars of military gear every single year, and we give them aid as well. We could put a proviso on that says we have to see improvements in human rights, or we have to see improvement in access to these things.
Sure, in human rights, but the question of, I mean, when you have Sunni Muslims who have deep faith that goes back to the 7th century, and they see things in a certain way. It's like, should we tell the Hasidim community or the Amish community how they should live? Do we demand that they change their ways? I think it's got to come from within those communities.
That's by choice. They live that way by
but
choice.
Andrew, but it's not that simple. What you just described. What happens when China does the same thing to America?
Fair point.
We don't like the way that you do this. You've got to change this.
That's a very fair point.
Right. This country would never accept it. So it is what it is.
I'm going to say congratulations once again to the winners of the Nobel Peace Prize. So I don't want anybody to think that we're not.
One Hindi and one Muslim, which is very nice.
That's terrific.
Yeah, exactly.
That's terrific. And Godspeed on their work and their efforts. We're going to take a quick break here. And when we come back, we're going to lighten it up just a touch. Pop star Katy Perry says she's game. She has agreed to play the Super Bowl halftime show, and she's going to do so without paying up. We will have more discussion and debate on this than we probably should next.